You're good.
Good evening. Welcome to the August 11th Town Vice Planning Board meeting. We're also, broadcasting this live on YouTube. I ask everyone to please speak up so that your voices can be heard not only here, but also to those watching at home. A couple of housekeeping matters this evening. If you're item number 1, Jetson Realty Corp., that has been adjourned. Item number 6, Bloom Energy Corporation, that has been adjourned. And item number 8, J. Nazar Partnership LP, that also has been adjourned. Those 3 will not be heard this evening. That being said, we'll go right to the agenda. So item number 2 on the agenda. Planning board application, public hearing, Vanderbilt Plaza LLC, PB 2021-025, west side of Villa Road, County Route 17, 103.5 feet south of Motor Parkway, County Route 67, 146 Wheeler Road, applicant request removal of all covenants and restrictions associated with TC 2589 that limits the use of the unit within the shopping center to an ice cream parlor. Good evening, Mr. DiNicola.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appearing on behalf of the applicant, Eugene L. DiNicola, 200 Railroad Avenue, Sayville, New York. The applicant is requesting determination of covenants and restrictions dated April 8th, 1977, recorded in the Suffolk County Clerk's Office in Library 8307, page 105, in connection with TC 2589. Or is it 87? In March of 1977, an application for a special permit was approved by the town board to permit an ice cream parlor to operate in a multi-tenant shopping center. The multi-tenant shopping center is now known as Vanderbilt Plaza LLC, located on the west side of Wheeler Road, 103.5 feet south of Long Island Motor Parkway, Central Iceland. The shopping center is located on 9 acres of property. The multi-tenant shopping center consists of 18 tenants with attendant parking facilities. The ice cream parlor is no longer operating in the shopping center, and the shopping center owner wishes to remove the recorded covenant restriction as an unnecessary encumbrance to title. There is no purpose to continue the covenant restriction against the property. I respectfully request, therefore, that this board grant the applicant's request terminating the recorded covenant restriction and authorizing the applicant to record a termination of the CNR with the Suffolk County Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. DiNicola. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Ms. Wozniak to give us a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The application proposes to remove all covenants associated with TC 2589, which limits the use of the unit within the shopping center to an ice cream parlor. Vanderbilt Plaza is located on the west side of Wheeler Road, approximately 100 feet south of Motor Parkway in Central Iceland. The property is improved as an 85,000 square foot multi-tenant shopping center that was originally CO'd in 1973. The covenants were imposed in 1977 and were likely standard at the time. Planning has no issue with changing the use of the tenant space, as any change of use will require proper building permits from the town to ensure compliance with all applicable codes. Based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application and remove all covenants associated with that TC.
Thank you, Ms. Wozniak. Any questions for the applicant or Ms. Wozniak?
I just want to comment, Mr. Chairman, that the store is now a bakery. All certificates of occupancy have been issued by the town of Iceland.
Thank you, Mr. DiNicola. You did such a great job of your presentation. There are no questions, so I'm going to ask if there's a motion. Hold on, you see, you had to add the extra on there, didn't you? Mr. Frugieri.
No, I just want a clarification. Are we removing all covenants associated with TC 2589, or just the one regarding the ice cream parlor?
Ms. Wozniak.
All of them.
All?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further questions? Is there a motion? Ms. Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will
Can you just get him a microphone? There you
close the hearing.
go. Just turn
And
it
grant
on.
the application.
There we go. I would move at this time to close the public hearing and grant the application, and based on the staff analysis,
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Matmore to close the public hearing and grant the application. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Have a good evening.
You too. Planning board application public hearing, Eric Bjornby, RA, PB 2021-026, north side of Sunrise Highway, State Route 27, west side of Danforth Avenue, Bay Shore, 1701 Sunrise Highway. Applicant requests the planning board special permit for an indoor recreation use in Business 3 District pursuant to 68-302.1R. Site plan modifications may also be requested as part of this application. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and to the members of the board. My name is Eric Bjornby. I'm an architect representing the client here with offices.
Could you just move the microphone either further over from Steve?
With offices at 42 Veterans Memorial Highway, Suite 2040 W, Holbrook, New York, 11741. We were hired by the proposed tenant, Live Ford, for Heads Up to represent him at the hearing. He's a proposed tenant inside the South Shore Mall, space A14. We're here tonight seeking approval for a special use permit for an indoor recreation space inside the mall. The location of the interior tenant inside the mall is approximately 2,579 square feet. The mall is inside the B3 district, Business 3 district. The previous tenant was a retail store that was the American Dog Club and was permitted back in 2016. My client is proposing the amusement space that consists of airsoft guns that will shoot small plastic BBs at targets approximately 20 feet away. There will be 5 stations, each shooting towards their own target in front of a mesh curtain towards the rear of the space. There's also mesh curtains on the sides of the space. The amusement will be limited to people ages 14 and up, and ID will be required. Children above 14 without ID will require an adult with ID. The airsoft guns will be tethered to the counter and will not be able to be removed from the area. The attendant will load up to 70 BBs at a time for the participant after they pay, and only the attendant will touch the BBs. The guns will be loaded after payment and do not have BBs when idle. There will be no prizes or tickets won. There will be no food or alcohol served in this location. The activities is becoming more popular, and I believe there's a similar activity in Spectator Mall. The existing space is generally open, and only proposed work is some millwork and mesh. The proposed hours of operation will be standard mall hours, and they'll vary throughout the year and holidays, and they can be found on the mall's website. There is no exterior work on this application. Just going from retail to amusement, the existing mall parking currently requires 4,354 stalls, and 4,923 are provided, so there's 567 additional. We do not believe that this establishment will negatively impact the area. Any questions?
Thank you. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, we'll go to Mr. Wozniak for a report, and then we'll come back for questions.
Thank you. The application proposes to convert one of the retail tenant spaces within the South Shore Mall into an airsoft shooting range with related retail activities. The proposed use will be approximately 2,500 square feet and have 5 shooting lanes. The unit is located inside the mall on the south end, across from JCPenney. Indoor recreation uses required parking is as determined by the planning board. However, the mall seems to have adequate parking to accommodate the use. Based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Wozniak. Questions from the board? Mr. Ruggiero?
You mentioned in your presentation that your clients, the guns will be locked down and they're not able to remove. Is there any chance that people will be able to bring their own guns in?
No.
No. Okay, good.
Any further questions from the board? Anything further from the applicant? Is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
I would move to close the hearing, Mr. Chairman, and grant the application.
It's a motion by Mr. Moriarty to close the public hearing and grant the application. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Ruggiero. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, town board application, public hearing, 1840 Sunrise Highway LLC, CZ 2021-013, southeast corner of Sunrise Highway, State Route 27, and Brentwood Road, Bay Shore, 1840 Sunrise Highway. Applicant requests to change the zone from Recreation Service G to Business 3, a modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC 5301, and a town board special permit for a vehicle dealership with accessory vehicle repair shop pursuant to 68-302F. Site plan modifications are required as part of this application. Good evening, Mr. Durant.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. For the applicant, G. William Germano Jr. of Germano and Cahill, 4250 Veterans Highway, Holbrook, New York. Also present with me, David Gonzalez, the architect from Capobianco's office, and Wayne Mueller of Arnold Engineering. I'm passing up to the board a packet of exhibits. Documents contain exhibits 1 through 9.
Thank you. We will accept those and make them part of the record.
This is a change of zone application from recreation to business 3. We seek a modification of covenants and restrictions limiting the use of the premises to a bowling alley dating back to 1961. We also seek a town board special permit for motor vehicle dealership and associated vehicle repair shop, parking relaxation, buffer relaxation, and landscaping relaxation. Due to existing conditions, we will seek 3 variances from the zoning board relating to the FAR, lot area, and front yard setback. And those are existing conditions. This property is located on the southeast corner of Brentwood Road and Sunrise Highway. The building fronts the South Service Road. It's an existing building containing 32,166 square feet and sits on 2.65 acres. It currently has an FAR of 0.28. We have 2 neighbors. The abutting neighbor to the east is the Lucille Roberts building, which is formerly the Roller Rink Probation Order. That building property is currently zoned business 3. And then to the north, we have, to the south, we have the cemetery, which is a residential zone. Briefly to go through the site history, in 1961, the town granted a change of zone from Residence B to Business 3. The premises was limited to a bowling alley, 25-foot setback to the rear property line, also required the installation of a 20-foot paved driveway from Brentwood Road with a single egress and ingress on the South Service Road on the eastern side of the lot. In 1990, on its own motion, the town changed the zone from Business 3 to Recreation. I believe that at that time, the property containing the Lucille Roberts building, which had roller rink, was also rezoned before being rezoned again to Business 3 for the construction of the Lucille Roberts building. In 2019, this board recommended and the town board approved a change of zone from Recreation to Business 3 with a special permit for indoor recreation. However, that project did not go forward, bringing us here tonight. If you look at your package of exhibits, I provided exhibit 1 is the existing building, and Mr. Gonzalez is holding up a blow-up of the existing conditions on the left and the rendering for the build-out on the right. So I'll just put this up closer. I don't think anybody else is here to. Well, the rendering is.
If we have them in the package, you can just tell us what page they're on.
So the existing building is approximately 60 years old and has been vacant for at least 5 years. Looking through the package of exhibits, exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4 show the existing building in its current state, the existing parking facilities, the existing landscaping in the rear, and the growth of the vacant parking lot. The user of the project is Empire. It would be a dealership that sells and services Jeeps, Ram, Chrysler, and Dodge. It has a primary facility in Huntington, but it also has a facility on the North Service Road in west Sunrise Highway in West Iceland. Now, the project's focus, while it includes the sale of pre-owned vehicles, is ultimately a service vehicle repair shop. So the primary use is vehicle repair, and it has a small showroom, which we'll go over, for the sale of pre-owned vehicles. It will not sell new vehicles at this facility. The repair shop is also not, it's not a pet boy, it's not open to essentially any vehicle owner. It's service Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and Chrysler vehicles. This will be an adaptive reuse of the existing building. We will not be taking the building down. We'll be working with the building to create the service center and the small showroom. We are projecting, which is indicated in the site plan, that there will be 26 employees at the building at any given time, and Empire projects 45 new jobs will be created by the project, from administration to service techs. Empire also projects that the range of compensation for these jobs will vary from $52,000 annually to over $90,000 annually, depending on if you're administrative or a tech. Now, if you look at the site plan, initially, the first thing I'd like you to take a look at is on the north side of the building. We have squared off the front. This allows us to add more parking along the front of the building. The site plan illustrates landscaping around the perimeter of the lot, specifically on the frontage facing Sunrise Highway, where there is currently no landscaping. We are adding landscaping, and the site plan illustrates that there will be trees throughout, as opposed to grass. And the reason for that is we want to illustrate to the board that the vehicles in the inventory will remain on a paved lot and will not be put into any landscaped area. The inventory that's represented on the site plan is 35 vehicles, and it's on the northernmost portion of the lot, and it's the color purple. We have customer parking represented by the color blue, closest to the front entrance of the building, and we're showing 40 spaces. We have service parking for service vehicles along the east side of the lot, showing 23 spaces, and that is in green. And then we have employee parking of 26 spaces on the west side of the lot for simply employees. Now, there is a single driveway along Brentwood Road, which is approximately 20 feet in width. We are illustrating in the plan that it would be one way in only, not out. There's also an existing ingress and egress close to the boundary line to the Lucille Roberts building, which is also existing. Going into the building itself, the floor plan illustrates that there'll be a small showroom containing at most 2 vehicles, pre-owned. There'll be parts of storage, an area for service write-ups, and there will be 6-car queue within the building for service, as well as 30 bays. And just so it's clear, that doesn't mean there'll be 30 techs. It's 1 tech per 3 bays. So there'll be about 10 service technicians on site at any given time. Again, customers are by appointment only, and the number of appointments are limited. The service center turns out about 5 to 7 vehicles for service per hour. And also let the board know that this user does not provide loaner vehicles, so there are no loaners on site. I'll also let the board know that the business model for the dealership industry has slightly changed over the years, and many of the pre-owned sales are done over the internet, and then the customers come and pick up the test drive the vehicles and pick them up. The parking, we seek a parking relaxation of approximately 14%. We are 143 are required. We are providing 123. But as I indicated, we could actually hold an additional 36 service vehicles inside the building if necessary. So, in other words, if you include that, we would exceed the parking requirement. As for landscaping, we meet the front yard landscaping requirements, but we are short on the overall landscaping, but we would require a 20% relaxation. The existing landscaping in the rear is, as you can see in the exhibits, it's a lot of growth and there are some trees, but we would be adding a lot of landscape, nice large trees along the perimeter of the front. We also seek a buffer relaxation of the required 25 feet adjacent to any residential zone in the rear of the building, but that is also existing, and it's doubtful the folks from the cemetery would object. At this time, I'd like to introduce Wayne Muller to discuss traffic and site circulation.
Good evening. For the record, Wayne Muller with the firm of Robinson and Muller Engineering. Offices at 50 Elm Street, Huntington, New York. A lot of what I was going to cover was already been covered by Mr. Germano. However, I'd just like to point out some of the major traffic engineering components of the project, as indicated by Mr. Germano and as indicated on the site plan prepared by Capital Architects. 2 access points will be provided to the property. Those points are existing. There'll be a single entrance-only driveway on Brentwood Road and a single enter and exit driveway on Sunrise Highway. The Sunrise Highway driveway will be configured for right turns entering and right turn exiting only due to the fact that Sunrise Highway is one-way eastbound. The service road, excuse me, is one-way eastbound in this vicinity. Compared to traffic engineering assessment as part of this project, it was submitted to the town, and just some of the highlights that were contained therein, as indicated by Mr. Germano. 143 parking spaces are required for the proposed dealership, and 123 parking spaces are provided. Based on our analysis contained in our assessment, the 123 parking spaces provided on the property would be more than adequate to satisfy the demand. As indicated in my analysis, if we were to compare the traffic generated by the proposed car dealership to that of the previous bowling alley use, and also the previously approved, I guess I would call it a recreational facility. It was a sort of a multi-use recreation facility for children, similar to a trampoline park. The dealership would generate more traffic than the bowling alley, however, similar quantities of traffic to the trampoline use and the retail component that was approved by this board, and ultimately approved by the town board, but never constructed by the owner of the property. We have received comments on our analysis from LKMA Associates. We are in the process of responding to those comments. We required some additional data from the DOT, which we're in the process of analyzing. So we will be submitting a revised analysis or a response to the comments contained in McLean's memorandum shortly after this hearing if there are no other questions that require additional analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. My one question either for you or for Mr. Germano, how are you taking delivery of the vehicles that you'll be selling?
All right. I'd like to introduce David Gonzalez to answer that question.
Okay. And the reason I asked is today I was driving from West Islip past your dealership on Sunrise Highway, and of course there are problems I'll discuss later on during questioning, but cars were lined up in the street and the tractor trailer that was unloading cars was parked in the right lane of Sunrise Highway Service Road, creating a serious problem out there. So I'd like to hear more about that.
Evening, Chairman. board members. So, my name is David Gonzalez, and I work with John Capobianco. And regarding the delivery, client has a off-site area in Huntington. They have like I think a 6-acre lot there that's their main drop-off point. And they only drop off what's needed for this site for the used cars. So no trailer or those big trailer delivery, car deliveries will be in that property. So they drive the cars individually in.
So just to be clear, I guess we can make that a condition, all vehicles will be driven down, that'll be flatbed or brown trucks.
That's correct.
Well, one moment. Yes, we will covenant that we will not have a car carrier, but it is possible that they would use a flatbed to carry to carry 2 vehicles. And the site, the truck turning template that we provided did accommodate that vehicle. It would not accommodate a car carrying 10 cars. But I also want to point out that for pre-owned vehicles, they wouldn't use that type of car carrier, according to our client. So it's not something that we could envision happening. And certainly, as I said, we would covenant that we wouldn't use one of the car carriers to do delivery.
As long as we can covenant, both at least the Nissan dealership over by the mall, we had a lot of complaints about cars being delivered on the streets coming off the trucks next to the dealership, not on the property. The most licensed one, as I said today, but for firsthand. Ironic that it was the day of the meeting, but covenant the fact that you're not using those carriers, and if they're being flatbed or however they're being brought down, that they'll be offloaded on site.
Yes, sir. If the board, that concludes the presentation, I'll entertain questions.
So, is there anyone here who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Coleman for a report, then we'll come back for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As stated by the applicant, this application proposes to repurpose the former bowling alley with a motor vehicle repair facility for a motor vehicle dealership. Previously, the property was the subject of a modification of covenants and restrictions to authorize uses other than the bowling alley. The zoning remained Recreation Circus G. The concerns raised at that time were related to traffic and parking. These remain concerns with the proposed use based on how the dealership may potentially operate. While the traffic generation rates from the proposed use are anticipated to be relatively low, the town traffic consultant asked that the applicant provide a discussion of the traffic expected to be generated by the proposed use and the context of the prevailing traffic patterns on the Service Road and on Brentwood Road. Ideally, the site would share a single access point to the New York 27 South Service Road with the Lucille Roberts facility immediately adjacent to the east. A typical car carrier trailer cannot enter and leave the site as it is designed currently. If car carrier transports parked along the shoulder of the South Service Road to unload, the operations of the northbound to eastbound ramp will be negatively impacted and could create a dangerous situation when vehicles on the ramp unexpectedly encounter the truck stopped on the service road. Lastly, the parking appears adequate for the proposed use. This is predicated on the premise that the dealership will not exceed 35 parking spaces slated for inventory. Planning staff has witnessed various dealerships exceeding their respective sites' capacities for car inventory, which adversely affects on-site landscaping and the operation of local streets due to overflow parking. Strict covenants and efficient management of the site will be key to maintain safety and prevent negative impacts to neighboring streets. So with that being said, the staff looks forward to R&M's response to LK McLean's traffic comments, and with that, the staff would recommend that the board reserve decision tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Questions from the board? So my only questions are, more statements, I guess, here, things that should be considered in the covenants is you reference the west slice of property. I don't know if you've been by the west slice of property, but again, I was there today. Most of the landscaping is now mud because there are cars, inventory parked there. There are quite often cars parked illegally on the street in front of it. lining Sunrise Highway, which there's also an off-ramp there from Robert Moses Causeway, which creates a dangerous situation. Additionally, the cars parked along the street tend to block the view of those that are in the veterinary office next door, which creates a problem for them trying to pull out of the veterinary office, creating problems with possible car accidents. And like I said, today there was a tractor trailer there unloading cars in the service lane itself, not on the shoulder, not in the parking lot, in the actual lane itself, which when cars are coming off that off-ramp at a high rate of speed to merge in, all of a sudden you're dead stopped by a truck parked there. So while I think this is a good use that can go there and I would tend to support it, I want to make sure staff knows that the covenants and restrictions that related to what can and can't be done there need to be tougher than normal and need to have teeth in them. I mean, we're dealing with an applicant we're familiar with based upon West Isaac property, where certainly the covenants and restrictions have been sort of violated and continually been violated. So I just want to put that on the record so that when you're back before us, you understand why those teeth are in that agreement.
Yes, sir.
Anything further from the board? Okay, that being said, is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
Yeah, I would move to close the hearing and reserve decision this evening.
It's motion by Mr. Moriarty to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Frugieri. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions were reserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item 5 on the agenda, Town Board application public hearing, Sylvan Avenue Properties, LLC, CZ 2021-014, east side of Sylvan Avenue, aka Spence Avenue, through lots in Nichols Road, approximately 1,300 feet north of Church Street, after request of modification of covenants and restrictions associated with TC 3565, in order to make the northern portion of the building to exceed 12 feet in height. Good evening to the applicant. Mr. Governor,
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is William Marino, 20 Main Street, Salem, New York. I'd like to hand out 2 green cards I received in the mail today.
Thank you. We'll take those right now.
I filed the other green cards yesterday. So this is a very limited application. We're looking to remove a restrictive covenant that limited the height of the building on the north part of this property to 12 feet. This covenant, I think, was in the mid-'80s, and at that time, there was no development in this area, and the concern was that property to the north was open space and could possibly be used for residences, and they wanted to keep the height of the building on the north side 12 feet. Since that time, in the last 35 years, that area has developed. The property north is Industrial 1. It's all improved with industrial buildings. So it doesn't serve the applicant any benefit to have a height of the building limited to 12 feet on the northerly end, and we're seeking to have that covered.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgate to give us a report.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated by the applicant, this application proposes to modify covenants limiting the height for a portion of the warehouse to 12 feet in height. That covenant was imposed in 1987 as part of a change of zone from residence AA to industrial 1. The minutes from that hearing are not available to determine what the impetus was for such a covenant, so Mr. Garbarino's guess is as good as anyone's. That being said, it's the staff's opinion that the height does not determine the intensity for this application. If aesthetics were a concern, it is the planning staff's opinion that a more attractive building could be constructed with a consistent height throughout. In addition, a 20-foot buffer is proposed on the east side of the site, which would screen some of the building from Nichols Road. If the board is satisfied with the proposal, the staff simply recommends eliminating the height restrictions detailed within TC 3565, so leaving the remaining covenants intact.
Thank you, Mr. Colvin. Any questions for the applicant or Mr. Colvin? No.
Just one
Mr. Moriarty.
What would be the permissible height?
Mr. Moriarty's question is, what would be the permissible height if it dropped?
35 feet.
Mr. Colvin.
I mean, in industrial one district, I believe it's 4 stories or 60 feet, but they wouldn't be able to comply with the setback requirements in light of that. So I believe Mr. Gerber is correct. Its proposal right now is 35 feet, and the elevation, the covenant would read in substantial compliance with that. So I don't believe you would see any taller.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Colvin. Any further questions? Is there a motion? Mr. Bergiaro.
Motion to close this hearing and grant the application based on staff comments.
There's a motion by Mr. Bergiaro to close the public hearing and grant the application. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Next item on the agenda, site plan modification, decision item, RG 55 Paradise LLC, SP 2021-018, south side of Howard Court, number 40, 685 feet south of Campbellwood Road, Bay Shore. Applicant requests site plan relaxations that include parking, loading bay docks, and refuse enclosure requirements in connection with the construction of a new industrial warehouse facility. Good evening to the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to the board and staff. Philip Butler with the law firm of Farrell Prince for the applicant. I'm joined tonight by Chris Robinson and Wayne Muller of R&M Engineering, and Mickey Columbus representing Rockefeller Group, the applicant. I know this item is on for a decision. This project in substantial form was previously before you in 2019. It was approved. So I'm happy to address questions from the board, or if the board would like, I can go into a full presentation, then follow up with questions. So I ask you what you prefer.
If you're okay, I can go right to the staff report and then come back to questions. Or
I'm totally happy with that, Chair.
why don't we go to Mr. Gonzalez and we'll come back to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This almost 11-acre site is zone industrial 1. It was previously improved industrial building, which obtained the CO for demolition back in June of 2018. The applicant is proposing a 201,219 square foot warehouse building, which includes almost 7,400 square feet of office mezzanine and a little over 21,000 square feet of dry storage mezzanine, along with associated parking, landscaping, and site improvements. It would have the main access via Harold Court to the north and Inez Drive to the southwest. Application is essentially the same proposal that was granted by the planning board and approved by the engineering division in January of 2019 under SP 2018-005 with a few revisions. The building size was reduced by 13,281 square feet. The prior plan had a build out of only 77 parking stalls with 259 land bank stalls with a relaxation of 114, where this would have 270 built out on site and a relaxation of 40 stalls. The relocation of proposed passenger parking areas are now on the side and rear of the building to avoid mixing passenger and truck traffic. The truck loading area is on the north side of the building facing Harold Court. There are greater eastern and southern property line setbacks as the building was shifted slightly to the northwest. There is an elimination of a slight landscaping relaxation in the new plan, and there's a request for a waiver of refuse enclosures as the applicant intends they are not necessary, and all on-site refuse will be stored in compactors on the east and west side of the loading area. There is a small variance that will be required for FAR that they will have to apply to the ZBA for. But other than that, those are the stipulations of the project. So based on the fact that the previous relaxations and site plan were granted and approved by the planning board and engineering division respectively, staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Do you have to like anything?
Yes, two notes. So with respect to the FAR variance, my office was in communication with the zoning board secretary this week. We are going to be granted a 6-month extension of the prior variance that was granted in connection with the 2019 approval. And also we have reviewed the draft conditions of approval that were provided to our office. We understand that there might be a modification that was discussed with Tanner perhaps. Taking that into account, the applicant is okay with the conditions as proposed, with the clarification that with respect to outdoor storage, we're talking about outdoor storage of goods and materials, not storage of like tractor trailers, which is obviously the predominant use of the warehouse facility.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Gonzalez to speak to what the changes are.
Sure.
So, I know it was mentioned in one of the briefings that, if there could be a potential covenant for no outdoor storage on the property, which is not permitted in the zone anyway for industrial one. So if the board feels it's necessary, we can add it, even though it's not permitted in the zone. And there's not going to be, to my knowledge, any storage or parking of vehicles other than the ones that are in the loading bays. So that wouldn't need any other, condition as far as I'm concerned,
So as written right now is what's being proposed to the applicant.
correct.
Are you referencing this change beyond what you've seen?
I haven't seen a draft of the conditions that included the condition regarding outdoor storage, so, but taking that into account, subject to seeing that, we don't have an objection to that additional condition in concept.
Okay, I'm not sure who is the woman here who had the issue about the applicant's storage.
I know Mr. Fuji already brought it up.
Mr. Jarvis, like the person you want that in, I think supports that.
If it's prohibited by code, in other words, they would need a special permit to have outdoor storage vehicles, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and they don't have it.
And they don't.
So then that's why.
Okay. So that means, any questions from the board? Anything further from the applicant?
Nothing further.
Is there a motion? Mr. Jarvis.
I'll make a motion that we grant this application subject to the covenants and restrictions drafted by staff.
A motion by Mr. Rujari to grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions drafted by the staff. Is there a second? I'm going to go with Mr. Matamore now. Mr. Moriarty's been speaking a little too much tonight. Second by Mr. Matamore, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you to the board, and thank you as always to the staff for their assistance. Appreciate it.
Town board application recommendation item, Good Samaritan Hospital Medical Center, CZ 2020-021, southwest corner of Montauk Highway, stated 27A, Beach Drive, West Islip, 1000 Montauk Highway. Applicant requests town board approval to construct a 300,000 square foot expansion of a hospital in excess of 35 feet in height, specifically 101 feet. Pursuant to Town Code Section 68-185B, site plan modifications are also requested as part of this application. Good evening to the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board. John A. Sloan for Housekeeping LLC, located 333 Earl Boulevard, Suite 901, Uniondale, New York, 11553, terms of the applicant. Here tonight with respect to Catholic Health Services application for site plan waivers and special permit recommendation for approval from the town board for building height in connection with the construction of approximately 300,000 square foot patient care pavilion at the Good Samaritan Hospital Medical Campus in West Islip, New York, together with related improvements. Since the public hearing that was held on June 30th, we have worked with the town planning department, town trade and safety division, and town's outside traffic consultant, LKM Plan. The hospital also met with the resident along East Bay Drive, who requested additional landscaping along the northern portion of the hospital's western boundary. In furtherance of this meeting and her comments at the planning board hearing, the hospital submitted revised landscaping plans to the town. Originally, this northwesterly area was proposed to be planted with 7 to 8 foot tall arborvitaes. As revised, the area together with the supplemental tree plantings on the north side of the drive aisle will be planted with 39 eastern red cedar trees planted at 12 to 14 feet in height, 40, 12 to 14 foot tall arborvitaes, 5, 3 to 3.5 caliber cherry trees, 5, 3 to 3.5 caliber tradition service berry trees. We also received a letter from the DOT dated August 2nd advising that it agreed with all mitigation measures provided and did not object to the town's approval and issuance of permits for the patient care pavilion improvements. A copy of this letter we're going to submit to the board right at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a copy already to report to as part of the record already. Thank you.
Sure. So, that being said, in response to certain questions raised by this board, VHB Engineering submitted written responses on July 9th. with respect to providing a breakdown of the percentages of the vehicles exiting the site that head east versus west, and the existing and proposed conditions in the summer and school year periods, the storage capacity of certain turn lanes, and the adequacy of such lanes to handle the anticipated left turn demand in the build condition, and the impact of the improvements on the left turn volumes at the site driveways. Based on discussions with the Town Traffic Safety Division and town consultants, the hospital also agreed to seek DOT approval to modify Montauk Highway and the hospital's egress by providing a pork chop island to help control the prohibition of lefts out of the site's easterly access driveway along Montauk Highway, adding dash parkings for traffic exiting the site's westerly access, and keep lane to guide traffic through the intersection, and relocating a westbound left turn lane stoplight to the east to alleviate potential conflicts for turning vehicles from Keep Lane. These will be supplementary proposals in addition to those already approved by DOT and may be further modified based on the direction of the Town Division of Traffic Safety and Planning Department. Finally, we have reviewed and conceptually agreed to the draft covenants and restrictions circulated by the Town Planning Department, which would be conditions of the Town Board approval if this application is granted. The applicant and his planning and traffic experts are here to answer any questions this board may have. Otherwise, we respectfully request that this board grant the requested site plan waivers and recommend approval of the application to the Town Board. On behalf of the applicant, we thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We'll turn to Mr. Hogan for a report, then we'll come back to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated, this application was previously heard at the June 30th hearing. Primary issues raised at that time were traffic on Montauk Highway and the appearance of the hospital from East Bay Drive. The applicant was asked to reach out to New York State DOT, which they've explained that we've received a conceptual agreement with New York State DOT that all parties are working diligently towards a resolution and that will not compromise public safety on the state highway. So we believe we're in a good place and they have no objection to this application moving forward. ISO Traffic Safety reviewed the exit at East State Drive and observed that some one-way signs were missing, as well as some of the striping. They will work on that with the state to get that resolved. With regards to aesthetics, the applicant has agreed to infill plantings along the western boundary of the property and plant street trees in front of those single-family dwellings it owns along East Bay Drive. Those should help soften the appearance of the hospital from those residences. Given that the traffic impacts were sufficiently evaluated and the height request complies with the town code, staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Questions for the board? I will note that Mr. Ricciardi has recused on this matter. Just one question. I know Ms. Coleman probably had discussions with the applicant on this. If both the applicant and Ms. Coleman can speak to, we discussed the top 2 floors of the new facility. The fact that if you build them out, we're not going to build, we're basically going to take patient care rooms that are currently doubly slotted, and then with the singles that we're not going to add, we're not going to have a net increase of patient beds. I just want to get clarification on
That
that.
is absolutely correct. The hospital is approved for 437 beds. To increase that number, it would have to make a CON application, and that certificate of need application actually requires local approval from the town of Iceland for the add those beds.
And the intent, if
The intent is to keep insurance, convert existing double beds into single beds in the existing hospital area, and create single beds in that area to keep the exact same number of beds that exist now.
So just to be clear on the record, if the top 2 floors are in fact built out, it's the hospital's statement on the record today that they will be built out as single beds or replacements to the current ones, not increasing the number of beds. You're not going to seek approval when building those out to increase the number of beds in the hospital.
The number of beds will be exactly the same, 437 in the build condition on the second floor is built out. They can only be built as single beds, but are prohibited by state law from receiving double beds in that area.
But not additional single beds.
Right.
So they will built out as keeping the same number.
Yes, sir.
Especially, I thank you for working with the applicants on East Bay Drive, with the applicants, the residents on East Bay Drive in terms of the landscaping. Thank you for doing that at the meeting. Are there further questions from the board? Anything further from the applicant?
No.
Is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty.
I would move to grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions that are attached.
A motion by Mr. Moriarty to grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions. Is there a second to that? Second by Mr. Bruno. Mr. Magmore. Second by Mr. Bruno. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cruz, is there a motion? Motion by Ms. Cruz to close the hearing, second by Ms. Matamore, all in favor, opposed, abstentions, the meeting is closed, thank you.